This is openSUSE Leap 42.2, the second point release of this version of openSUSE, which is based on the last stable release of SUSE Linux Enterprise, plus desktop features supplied by the openSUSE community. I installed it on one partition of a remote hard drive, and therefore I didn't use the BTRFS or ButterFS or btray file system. I used the ext4 file system and just one large root partition and a shared swap partition. So some of the features new to this version of openSUSE were not available for me to test since they involve that ButterFS file system. As usual with openSUSE, I had difficulty connecting to my wireless adapter during installation, but I had no trouble connecting once it was installed. Now I'm going to change a few features of this desktop. I'm going to right-click on the desktop and then on Configure Desktop, and under Tweaks, down here I'm going to get rid of this desktop toolbox. And first I want to apply the change I just made. And you can see that the desktop toolbox, which was up here, is gone. Now under folder view, I'm going to change that to desktop. Apply. And as you can see, the folders are no longer available. Now as usual, there are three menu options available, but by default openSUSE uses the application menu. As far as I know, this is for the first time. Previously, it has used the application launcher. I prefer the menu by far to the launcher. But if you like the launcher, you can right-click and go to Alternatives, and then click on Application Launcher, and then switch, and when you open it you'll get this, the application launcher. I don't like it, but this was the traditional KDE menu. So anyway, I'm going to right click again, and just to show you the other one, I've already demonstrated this in other videos, the application dashboard. Switch. And it opens this more graphical interface. So if you prefer that, you can use it. I'm going to go back to the application menu. Now you may notice that I'm using Simple Screen Recorder, and I'm happy to say that it was available from the openSUSE repositories just using the YAST installer. If you click on System, you'll find Install and Remove Software, and that's the traditional openSUSE YAST installer. It operates somewhat similar to the Synaptic package manager in Ubuntu or Debian. You have to know the name of what you're looking for. I also installed VLC, the VLC media player, but I did not find that in the repository. There are many ways of getting software for openSUSE, and one is the one-click install process. The easiest way to do this is to go to Google or whatever search engine you use. And just search for what you're looking for. For instance, the VLC for openSUSE. Now I found it here, for instance. You notice it has a one-click install for Leap 42.1. A one-click install for 13.2, one-click install for Tumbleweed, and a one-click install for 13.1. It doesn't yet have a one-click install for 42.2, but I used the one-click install for 42.1 and got it. It just took a little more than one click, however. You'll find a number of applications that are available for openSUSE by searching on the internet that are not available in the openSUSE repository. So don't give up until you've tried that. I did have trouble using the restricted codecs that I usually use with Simple Screen Recorder, and I downloaded some codecs again from the one-click install process, but I was never able to get everything I needed. So I'm using the open source codecs, and that seems to work fine. Just a quick look at what's available in this version. Development, you have the translation tool, Qt5 Assistant, Qt5 Dbus Viewer, and the Qt5 Designer. Under games, you have board games, card games, logic games. I'm not interested in any of those. Now, under graphics, you have Digicam, you have GIMP, which I can't say for any of the recent Ubuntu releases, but it's here by default. Even though it's not a KDE application, it's a GTK application. You also have some more traditional KDE applications, GwenView, Huggin Batch Processor, Huggin Calibrate Lens, Huggin Panoramic Creator, LibreOffice Draw, Show Photo, and Scanlight, which is a scanning utility. On your internet, you have Aggregator, Cloud Storage Manager, Contact Print Theme Editor, Contact Theme Editor, Firefox, which is what I use, Kmail Header Theme Editor, Kmail, Knet Attach, Conqueror, Conversation, Copetti, and Sieve Editor. Under Multimedia, you have Amarok, AMZ Downloader, Dragon Player, which works pretty well, K3B, which is for disk burning, KSCD, Simple Screen Recorder, which I installed, as I mentioned, and VLC, which I installed. Under Office, you have the Cloud Storage Manager, the Contact Print Theme Editor, again, the Contact Theme Editor, again, the K Address Book, the Kmail Header Theme Editor, again, Kmail, Contact, all again, K Organizer. Now here you have LibreOffice Base, the database application, LibreOffice Calc, LibreOffice Draw, LibreOffice Impress, LibreOffice, and LibreOffice Writer. And you have Ocular, which is the PDF viewer, and Sieve Editor, again, whatever that is. You also have the WorldView Microsoft Document Viewer. Under Settings, you have Configure Desktop, ICT Web Control Panel, ICT Web Policy Editor, Manage Printing, Qt4 Settings, and YAST. And of course, YAST is worth a little view of its own, but let me proceed. Under System, you have ARC, which is an archive manager, Dolphin, which is the file manager, and you also have File Manager in a super user mode, which means you can open files which are normally unavailable to anybody but the administrator. You have the Info Center, which gives a lot of good information about the system. And I've gone into this before, so I won't really dwell on it. But this is KDE Plasma version 5.82. I thought it was 5.81. It's 5.82. Not quite the latest, but almost the latest. It's kernel version 4.4.27-2. Now that's a long-term support version of the kernel. It's not the latest version, however. So if you have really new hardware or really new video card or something like that, you might want a more up-to-date kernel, but this is a stable version. So again, there's all sorts of information about your system which I've gone into before, and I'm not going to dwell on it here. Going back to System, it has Install Remove Software, which I've shown you before. It's part of the YAST system. K3B again, which is a disk burner. KGet, KNetAttach, Console, this is the KDE Terminal emulator. KSysGuard, KWallet Manager, I have a few unpleasant words to say about that. Manage Printing, OpenJDK Policy Tool, Print Settings, Terminal Super User Mode. This is the other version of the terminal. You see there's Console, and there's a Terminal Super User Mode, which means you enter your password once, you don't have to keep entering it. Xterm and YAST again. Under Utilities, you have ARC again, the Archive Manager. KCalc, which is a calculator. KChar Select, which is a character selector for unusual characters. KColor Chooser. KGPG, Cleopatra, KMag, KMouse Tool, KNotes, Compare with a K, KRuler, KWrite, the Qt4 settings, Spectacle, again, the Scan utility, and Sweeper for cleaning your system. Under Power and Session, you have Lock, Log Out, Switch User, Suspend, Hibernate, Reboot, Shut Down. Now let me go back to YAST for a minute. Enter my password. Now let me point out that it says you can click on Remember Password. I've done it, and it never remembers it, so I keep having to enter it. So the YAST Control Center, I've gone over that before in previous reviews of openSUSE, but it's one of the most extensive control centers and one of the best in any Linux distribution. Here you can install add-on products, you can access and control your software repositories, you can verify your installation media, you can do the online update and software management. Under hardware, you can get information about your installed hardware. You can configure printers, configure a scanner, configure your sound card. Now, I did this already, and I had to enable the drivers for my sound system and for my Yeti microphone, but the drivers were already listed. I just had to enable them and was able to do that very quickly. And the system keyboard layout, I can change that if I want. Under System, you have the System Configuration Editor, a tool for configuring the bootloader, changing the date and time, selecting fonts, configuring the kernel. I would suggest not doing this unless you really know what you're doing. Changing the language, configuring the network, and the KDE partitioner, which is very similar to gpart. It is slightly different, but it works in a similar manner. And then the Services Manager. Now, under Network Services, you can change the host name. You can change the LDAP and Kerberos client. Configure the mail server, set up and configure an NFS client. An NIS client, and you configure an NTP client, configure network services, set up a proxy, set up a VNC remote administration, set up a Samba server if you want to communicate with Windows, manage the user logon procedure, set up a virtual private network, Windows domain membership, configure the SCSI initiator. Now, obviously, there are a lot of initials here. I don't want to go into all these, but there's a lot you can do, probably things you don't even understand that you can do. Set up AppArmor, set up the firewall, configure the local security settings, and configure the sudo utility, which is the feature of the terminal emulator, which allows you to be the administrator. And then you can configure user and group management. Now, there's a way of installing hypervisor and tools. And configure a host for virtual machine migration. Now, under support, there's a release notes. And under miscellaneous, you have a snapper, system log, systemd journal, and the vendor driver CD. Now, the snapper is a way of taking snapshots of your system if you're using the Btrfs or Btray file system. Since I'm not using it, this won't work. Now, in addition to the YAST control center, you have the configure desktop, which is basically the KDE Plasma 5 controls. And I've gone over these in earlier videos also. Each iteration has a few different things. There's a few more workspace themes. There's Breeze Dark, which were here before, and there's the openSUSE, which is what's installed here. And there's a few more options under desktop themes. openSUSE is what's installed. I want to try openSUSE Dark. I'll try that. Click on Apply. And it has a little darker menu bar down here. And it's also a lot easier to see the network manager. And when we open the menu, it's darker too. I won't go through the rest of these in any detail since I've done it before, and there are some differences, of course, each time, but the general approach is largely the same as it was. I guess my one remaining gripe about the KDE Plasma system is this dreaded KDE wallet. The system won't remember your network manager encryption key unless you use the KDE wallet, which means you actually have to sign in twice. Once when you log into the system and once when you sign into KDE wallet. Now, it's true you could use different passwords for both, and so perhaps that redundancy might be useful in some situations, but to me it's just a headache. Almost every other Linux operating system remembers your Wi-Fi encryption key, and you don't have to sign in twice to use it. Otherwise, I'm relatively pleased with the system. I haven't had any problems with it yet. If I do, I'll be the first to mention them. This is XRAM Tech. Thanks for watching.